All right, we're going to call this lesson 1.1, system of three variables. So 1.1, system of three variables. Okay, and we know from Algebra 1 how to solve a system of two variables, right? We're used to seeing x and y. We're used to seeing that. So if we look at example number 1, how might we solve example number 1? Which should we eliminate, x or y? Someone said y. Does it matter, first of all, does it matter which one you eliminate? No, it doesn't. You could do x or y. If you look at y, Brooklyn, what did you just say? Sorry, I mean you. What did you just say?
I don't care. Because the y's are already opposites.
The y's are already opposite signs, right? Which is going to make our life a little bit easier. For this lesson today, I'm going to ask you to change the way that you have probably done elimination in the past. In that, I want you to write out beside, not underneath. Because I know what's coming forward, what the lesson looks like today, and if you write underneath, you are going to be confused out the wazoo. Okay? So we're going to write to the side. So 3 and negative 2 need to become what number, guys? Anyone? 3 and 2 need to become what number? 6. We're doing the y's. 6, right? So I'm going to multiply the top row by a 2. And I'm going to multiply the bottom row by a 3. Remember, that's going to knock out my y values. It's going to make them both 6. So again, we're writing to the side. So I have 4x plus 6y. And we remember we have to multiply the 12 as well, right? We have to multiply everything. So that's going to equal 24. Next, we'll multiply the 3 out, and again, we're writing beside, not underneath. 3 times 5 is 15x. 3 times negative 2, negative 6y. And 3 times 11 is 33. What do we do at this point now? We cancel, we eliminate. That's called adding. We're going to add the two rows together. So I'm going to draw my line. I'm going to add these two rows together. 4x and 15x gives me 19x. We said the 6y's cancel each other out. And then 24 and 33 together, 57. We're going to divide by 19. X is, can I get another person to agree that it's 3? Anybody else?
Yeah.
Couple? X is 3. Now, are we finished with this problem? Why are we not finished? Someone raise your hand and tell me. You.
Plug 3 into x.
Okay, we have to plug 3 back into X so that we can do what?
So you can get y.
So we can find Y. Does it matter which equation you plug it into? No?
Okay.
Yes?
I got a question. Why did you divide 57?
Oh, thank you for that error. Good catch.
Okay.
You get a gold star for the day. Yes.
Question. So, do we go back to one of the original problems?
Yes, that's a good question. You must go back to one of the originals, one of these two. Let's just take the top one. Let's all plug our 3 in for X using the top equation. So I'm using the top equation. I'm plugging my 3 in for X, and now I'm going to solve it for Y. So 2 times 3 is 6. We can all solve this equation. Guys, you're in Algebra 2 now, so you don't have to do this part right here. You don't have to do minus 6 and minus 6 unless it's helpful for you. If you want to do it, it's totally fine. But because you are now in Algebra 2, I'm not going to make you do that. We do know that 3y is going to equal 6 because I subtracted 6 from 12. Here's the thing though, if you are not sure sometimes if I skip a step like that, please always ask. And I'll say, oh yeah, remember we subtracted 6, I just didn't write it. Okay? And then y is going to be 2. So raise your hand and tell me how we write our final answer. U.
You put x and y, so you would put 3, 2.
This is called an ordered pair, right? 3, 2. Always in alphabetical order. X, y. So if we were using A and B, it would be A, B. Questions on that one? Okay, there's not one written there, but we're going to do a second one. And I want you to, now you may work this one on your own. Okay, so right over there in that other space, you're going to write 9x plus 6y equals negative 21.
I used up my whole screen.
That's okay. You can flip it over to,
The back side, they don't have
or you can use it, there is something on the back side. You can use a separate sheet of paper. That's fine. You're gonna use that space up, trust me.
improvise. Yes,
Don't use the space at the bottom. Do not use the space at the bottom. Do not use the space. Listen, you need to, if you don't have room on the first, you have room over there in yours. Over here to the side. If you have room over here to the side, do it over here to the side.
What's that, VY?
9x plus 6y. I'll fix my 6 for you. 9x plus 6y equals negative 21. Negative 4x minus 9y equals 3. Remember, it doesn't matter whether you cancel x's or y's. You pick. Okay, so I'd like you to take a minute and do that. If you're watching the video, go ahead and pause. Okay, we're going to pick x. So if you want to eliminate x, 9 and 4 go into what number?
Neither.
Not go into each other. What number do they multiply together to make?
Like, so if I were to do 9 times 4,
Okay, so we're going to multiply this row by 4 and this row by 9. Okay, so I'm going to multiply this row by 4 and this row by 9. They're already opposite signs, right? Positive and negative. They're already opposite signs. So I don't need to multiply the 4 and 9 by negatives. Okay, so now we're going to multiply through. Put your 4 and 9 here on your paper. No matter which way you do it, you should be getting the same answer. Okay? So if you already have your answer, you can check with your neighbor to see what they got, see if you guys got the same thing. Okay, so this is going to give me 36x plus 24y equals negative 84. You okay so far? Okay.
I'm slowly understanding what you're saying here.
Okay, let's do the next row. Negative 36x, negative 81y, and 27. We're going to add them together. The x's cancel.
Wait, then is that negative 80 20?
This is a negative 81.
Okay.
Yep.
Is that a positive 20?
Right, because 9 times 3 is positive 27. Negative 81 and 24. Anyone have that math? Okay, I'll do it. Thank you. Negative 57y.
See, now that you pointed it out to me, it's like it's a big fat majority to me, but my brain just wasn't processing it.
Okay.
I saw 2 numbers that were completely odd and even, and I'm like, how am I going to do this?
Okay, let's keep going.
Oh, I hate it when math problems do that.
You hate it? Makes life a lot easier. Boom. What'd you get? You're close. Wait, don't erase the whole thing.
No, I messed up.
This is right.
That's right.
Yeah, except this is positive.
Well, I put a 9 there.
Okay, so that should be a. Hang on just a second. Okay, so now that we know that y is 1, shh. Now that we know y is 1, we're going to plug it back in. Again, it doesn't matter which one you plug it into. I'm getting x to be negative 3. So I have x is negative 3 and y is 1. Anybody else have that answer? You guys are freaking rocking this. Okay? My finger. Pretty fancy.
Yeah, I see that. My goodness.
Negative 3, 1 is going to be our answer. Thank you. Did you have 2? Oh, you did. This was the previous problem? I see. Okay, okay. All right. Any questions on example 1 or 2? This next part is going to feel like you're going crazy. Okay? I'm telling you that so that when you feel it, you're going to say, this is actually normal. Okay? We are going to take our time going through this example. It's going to take us like 10 or 15 minutes to go through one problem. And we're going slow so that you feel comfortable doing it. Not all the problems are going to take you 15 minutes to do. Okay? But the first one we're going to go through slowly so that you get all the steps and so you can do well on your own. Okay?
Before we continue, is this a dividing sign or addition sign on my paper?
Well, I'll talk about that in just a second. Let me talk through the 3 solutions first. Okay, just like when you had a system of 2 equations, there were 3 types of solutions. The first one is where you have one solution, right? That's what we just did, where we had an x and a y answer, where you have one solution. Same thing with a system of 3 variables. You might have one where you have one solution. Except this time, it's going to be a triple. We're going to use x, y, and z. Z is bringing out the 3rd dimension. And just in case you were curious, because I know you all are, this is our x and y axis, right? That's what we're used to seeing, x and y. So a system of 3 variables throws in z, which looks like this, where it's coming at you. It's coming towards you kind of out of the paper, like 3 dimensions, okay? So that's where z comes from. So there is 3 dimensions in algebra, although it goes in calculus is when you get through it. But thankfully today we're just sticking with algebra 2. Okay? So you don't have to graph it at all. I just wanted you to understand where the z randomly came from. Okay? We always deal with x's and y's and that's it. But I wanted you, this is what we usually look at, is this kind of a graph. But I wanted you to know where z comes from. It's actually a 3rd axis that exists in the world of math. But you don't talk about it until calculus. So it's fine. I just want you to understand that we didn't just randomly throw a z in there. Okay? So, but no, you're not going to have to graph it. Okay, what other types of solutions can you have? Infinitely many, right? That was another way we had it. We had infinitely many.
And no solution.
Infinitely many solutions. And we're going to do the infinity sign. Have you learned the infinity sign yet? It's a sideways 8. It's a sideways 8. So you can draw it 2 little circles together like that. You can practice and do the sideways 8. That's an infinity sign. Okay, you're going to know that the answer is infinitely many if when you solve the problem, your variables drop out and you get 0, and your number constants drop out and you get 0. So if you're working the math problem and you get 0 equals 0, this is an infinitely many solution. Okay? The next type, what did you say, Brooklyn?
No solution.
No solution. So again, just like when you had 2 variables, you had no solution. This is when you get your variables to drop out, but maybe you get a number like 5. 0 does not equal 5, right? So that would be no solution. Now, you can have x equals 0. That can be a solution. But if your variable drops out completely, you have no variable left, then it's no solution, okay? All right. We ready? Yes.
Oh, I was gonna start on the problem.
Okay.
I was gonna ask you.
Before we start on the problem, let's talk about which signs are which. So across the top, you should have negative, plus, plus, negative. Negative, plus, plus, negative. Some of your papers are a little funky, so make sure you do that. Negative, plus, plus, negative. The second line, you should have negative, 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 positive 13. The third line, you should have negative, negative, positive, negative. Okay, so if you need to bold yours in, I'm sorry the copying didn't work out so well. All right, here we go. Dun, dun, dun.
Isn't this like
Don't mess up my introduction. Okay, hold your question for just a minute. All right, so just like when we had two equations, we get to choose x's or y's, right? When we had two equations, same thing here. You get to choose x's, y's, or z's. All right, so now we have a z element. Take a minute and look at these three equations and look to see if you already have something that might cancel out between two equations. If you find it, raise your hand. Something that might cancel out between two equations.
Negative 5z and positive 5z.
All right, you guys see negative 5z and positive 5z. If I were to put those together, they're going to cancel out, right? Okay, so this is what we're going to do. And I need you to do it exactly like I'm doing. We're going to group these together with a bracket. And we're going to do it on the left side because we're going to start writing on the left side. So over here I'm going to put, this is step number 1. I'm going to copy those two equations down. Exactly. I'm not going to cancel them out yet. I'm just going to copy them down. So those two equations, go ahead and write them down.
Is it possible to cancel all three out at once, or is that not possible? Is this a particular
We will
problem?
not ever encounter that.
Like, so it's never
So
possible?
I didn't say that. I said we will not encounter that. In this class, let me put the stipulation on this class. Okay, now we can add these together like normal. If you have large handwriting, you should probably attempt to make it a little bit smaller right now, okay? So we're going to cancel out these negative 5z's. And let's combine like terms like we do normally. So negative 2x and negative 6x make negative 8x. Negative 5 and negative 4 make negative 9y. Equals 13 and negative 21. What is that? Negative 8. Okay, now typically we would have one variable left and we would be able to solve from here, right? But that's not the case. So now we're going to leave this here, okay? We're going to choose another two equations, a different two, and knock out z, because whatever you knock out in step 1, the z, you have to knock out in step 2. You hear that clearly? Listen clearly. It doesn't matter how you start, right? From the very beginning, you can knock out x, y, or z. But step 1 and step 2 need to knock out the same variable, okay? So we took out z here, so we're going to take out z again. What about looking at the top two equations?
Yeah.
On the top two equations, these two right here, we have a 2 and a negative 5. So they're already opposite signs, but we need them both to be what number? 10 to cancel out, right? So that means I'm going to put parentheses around this top one. We're going to multiply this row by 5, and we're multiplying this row by 2. Okay, so then step number 2 is over here. In step number 2, we're going to go ahead and multiply those two rows out. So on the first row, I'm going to multiply that 5 through. So that gives me negative 20x. Go ahead and do it. You don't have to look up here because you can multiply a 5 through. Okay, once you've multiplied the 5 through, go ahead and multiply the 2 through.
I'm confusing myself.
Take your time. Don't rush through this. I will tell you that missing one negative sign can mess up your entire problem. Okay, so be very careful when you're multiplying.
For that person, like, can't find Mrs. Carolyn.
I think the only thing that's gonna confuse me is figuring out that I need to make them a 2.
You can always just multiply them by each other, right? So notice that we multiplied 2 by 5 and 5 by 2. So you just multiply them by the opposite. Because why couldn't you do it to which one? The bottom 2 or the top and the bottom? Well, because they were already both a 5, right? So we can knock them out already. We didn't have to multiply anything. Okay. Where's your step number 1 at?
Right here and right here.
Okay.
That's the first thing.
Yep. Did you see how I wrote it over here and then over here? I need you to do that. Otherwise, you're going to confuse yourself, right? This is like 6 equations already. Okay. So in the future, go step 1, step 2. So right now, put number 1 and number 2 so you know what's going on. And that's why we put these brackets over here together. So I know on this side, I'm taking these 2. And on this side, I'm taking these 2. Okay. All right. So go ahead and add these 2 equations together. We should be getting negative 24x plus 20y equals negative 24. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay, because our z's canceled. All right. Any ideas?
Yeah. Now you're
Go
gonna
ahead.
You're gonna do step 1 and step 2. The answers, put them together.
Okay, so what she just said is we're going to take this guy and this guy. That's going to be our step number 3. Now, what I'd like you to do before multiplying anything out, step number 3, just write the 2 equations down. Okay? So, and I would draw arrows like that so that when you go back to look at your notes, you see where these 2 came from. Okay? So we have negative 8x minus 9y equals negative 8. And negative 24x plus 20y equals negative 24.
Actually, this isn't as bad as you made it out to be.
Now between these 2 equations, now it's going to be something that you've already done before, right? You can eliminate with 2 variables like we've done in the past. Let's go ahead and take out, look at this guys. Does 8 go into 24? We could, right? So we could just multiply only the top row by what? By negative 3, right? Because we need this to be a positive. So we're going to multiply the top row by negative 3. And we remember we're writing out beside the problem. We're not writing underneath. You're going to write it out to the side, please. So go ahead and multiply a negative 3 through. We didn't change the bottom row, so I'm just going to write the bottom row underneath.
Oh, this is equal minus x.
Let's go ahead and add the 2 rows together. Remember, 24x's are going to cancel. I have 47y equals 0. Now, is this a no solution? Because I have 47 and 0. Is it a no solution?
No, not yet, because the variable's still there.
I still have a variable, right? And remember we said 0 can be an answer, right? So we're going to divide by 47, and we know 0 divided by anything is
0.
0. Okay, so we have y is 0.
And yours are not the
How are we going to figure out x and z? Because look, if I plug y back into the beginning, I'm still missing x and z, right? So think about it. Where could we plug y in that we might be able to figure out what x is? Where might we be able to plug x in? Or I'm sorry, y in, so we could find out what x is?
In step 3?
In one of these, right? In one of these equations. Because if I plug a y in here, I only have x left, right? So if I plug a y in here, I can solve for x, right? So I'm going to take this y equals 0 and I'm going to plug it into either this one here or this one here. It doesn't matter which one. You choose. So this is going to be step number 4. Let's write it over here to the side. Step number 4. If you need to make yourself a note, write plug y back in to step 1 or 2. Plug y back in to step 1 or 2. You get to pick.
But the answer.
Yeah, I'm sorry, the answer. Plug your 0 in.
Here's the thing though, no matter which one we pick, it's basically gonna end up being basically 1.
It's going to be the same answer. Yes, that's why it doesn't matter which one, step 1 or step 2, that you plug the y value back into. Yep. So negative 9 and 0 just make 0. So I have negative 8x equals negative 8. Divide by negative 8 and x is 1. Okay, so I have my x value. I have my y value. How are we going to find z?
Plugging x and y into any of the above problems.
All right, we're going to take our x value as 1, our y value is 0, and you get to choose any of the 3 originals. Okay, so step number 5 is to sub x and y back into the original. And again, it doesn't matter which original you choose. There might be one, I would choose the one with the least negative signs, so I would choose the top one. Because the more negative signs you use, the more likely you are to make a mistake.
You plug them both in at the same time.
Yes, you're going to plug them both in at the same time so that your only missing variable is z. Okay? So again, let's go ahead and plug back in just to the top one. Plug your x in and plug your y in. And let's see if we can solve for z. Okay?
Which one are you doing?
I'm going to use the top one. So negative 4 and my x value is 1. Plug them into the right spot, please. Six times 0 is gone. So negative 4 plus 2z equals negative 10. Hang on, please. You're doing okay. And we're running out of space. No, z does not equal 3.
Negative 3.
Negative 3, which is different. You should have a negative. Did you lose your negative?
No, I wrote it there. I just didn't write it in my final answer.
Okay. So z is negative. Whoa.
Okay then.
Z is negative 3.
Because you have negative 10 plus 8 when you divide by 100.
How are we going to write our final answer? Yeah, go ahead.
You would put 1, 0, negative 3.
Okay, so remember we write it as an x, y, z triple. Okay? So instead of x, y, z, we're going to use the values that we have. 1, 0, negative 3 with parentheses. Because remember, this is talking about a point. And we talked about on that grid, we have an x-axis, a y-axis, and a z-axis, right? So these are the 3 points that go on the x, y, and z-axis all together. That's why it's an ordered pair.
Actually, on that grid, wouldn't that make it somewhere like in the middle, like
Yes.
in the between the in the corner over to your
Yes.
left?
Yes. Okay. I want to make sure this looks like a hot mess. Okay? It does look like a hot mess. In your homework, okay, you have an entire page for one problem. Okay, for each problem. I have given you plenty of space to use. If you follow this 1, 2, 3 step method, you should do just fine. If you decide to go off the radar and do whatever you think you should, or whatever you feel is best, but you don't follow my steps, you will be confused. Okay? So let's go ahead. We have a few minutes before break. Let's do example number 2. Okay? Yeah. You're going to be fine. Okay, step number 1 is to choose 2 equations. What might be easy to choose?
The top two.
What variable might be easiest to knock out? If we look at the r, you see how this is a -2 and this is a 1? Right? So I could just make this top one become a what? A 2. All right, so remember, step number 1 is to bracket them together. So step number 1, and off to the left, you're going to bracket these 2 together. We're multiplying the top row by a 2. And because we're moving it to the left, please put your 2 on the left side there.
Just as a gander, couldn't we multiply the 2 by 6 and the 6 by r by 2?
Yes. But you're going to make, sometimes you're making life harder than what it needs to be. Okay? But there is, I will tell you this, there's no wrong way to start the problem. Okay? So once you get started, that's when you have to make sure you're following the right steps. But there's multiple ways to get started. Okay? And then we have 2 times 3t, so that's plus 6t equals negative 34. Okay, did we change the bottom row at all?
No.
Okay, so let's go ahead and just write that underneath. Okay, you know what's next. Go ahead and add your 2 rows together. Very carefully, please. Because one missed sign or one wrong number can mess up your entire problem. And then it becomes very frustrating.
I hate it when variables use the t variable. I always confuse it with the plus sign.
That's why do you see how I made a little tail on my t? That's how you differentiate. If I were you, I would draw a line under this so it doesn't look like 3 equations on top of each other. Okay, the r's cancel. Negative 17s plus 11t equals negative 41. Okay, so then we're going to pause on that equation. We're going to pick another 2 equations, but what letter do we have to knock out in step number 2? R, right? Because whatever you knock out in step number 1, you have to knock out in step number 2. Again, there are multiple ways to do this, but I like to take the road that is less. If I take the first and the last to knock out that R, that means I have to multiply the top row by what? I'm getting my R's gone, right? So if I take the first and last, this R needs to become a negative 6, right?
Wait, what?
Okay, I'll say that again. I want to knock out this 6R and this R. I want to cancel them out. So this one's already a 6, so this one needs to be negative 6, right?
So you can multiply the same thing more than once.
Yes, you can use it. You can use one row more than once. You just can't use the same two, right? We couldn't use the first and the second one again together. Okay. All right. So we're going to multiply the first row by a 6. Please put the 6 on the right side because we're moving to the right.
Negative 6 is possible.
Woo! What is it?
Negative.
Negative 6. Thank you. Good catch. Yeah, you're right. Like I said, a negative sign can make or break you. Okay, so we're going to do negative 6 through the top row. You're writing it out to the right. This is step number 2. What's 6 times negative 17? Negative 102. Okay. Thank you.
Shouldn't it be positive? It's a negative 17. And a
Oh, yeah.
negative 6.
Sorry. You're right. Positive 102.
Okay, see?
Yeah. That's why I'm not the teacher. Okay, I'm pausing.
Ain't negative 6 times
36?
Oh, 18.
It's,
Oh, man. I'm losing.
it's negative.
Guys, I've been off for summer break.
It's negative. It's negative.
Guys, it's okay. Listen, I am also human. I know it's hard to believe. I do look like Wonder Woman. But
Miriam, roll that. Miriam, that Nancy has stopped working.
36S. That look better? And then, but it's a positive 36S? Okay, and then a negative 18T. Boy, I'm glad I have you guys to keep me in check.
You're welcome.
Equals positive 102. We're going to get through this. Yeah, I was just checking to see if you guys are paying attention. Isn't that what most teachers say?
Yeah. I did it on purpose. I was making sure you.
That's right. Thank you, Brooklyn, for finally figuring it out. I just did that on purpose. See if you guys would catch it.
You're welcome. See, I was watching. And I read your
Okay.
mind. And
It's a scary place to be.
And now the statement teachers make every time in my graceful year suddenly makes sense. I was just checking to make sure you paid attention.
Yep.
Meanwhile, wow.
Okay, but sometimes that is actually true. I do sometimes intentionally make mistakes.
We're all human.
Thank you, Taylor. Okay, go ahead and add these together.
Don't confuse me more than I already am. How are you gonna tell me to figure it out? You already doing the problem and done.
Sorry. Well, you don't have to keep watching. You can do it on your own paper, then check to see. Right?
And 34. 22.
Hold on, I got 88.
Do you have 102 and 20?
Yeah. 102.
2 minus 0 is what? You did 10 minus 2. Yep, 82. Sorry. Okay, what's step number 3, Braxton? Step number 3 is to take our 2 equations from step 1 and step 2 and pull them together. Okay, so let's take the step, what we did in step 1 and step 2 and pull them together. That's going to give us our step 3. Remember, we just write them down as originals and then we'll change them.
Would there be any harm in just switching the variables to x, y, z?
If that is what you need to do, then you do you.
Yeah, it's. I've already confused myself to oblivion trying to differentiate the
Okay,
t
okay.
and the pluses.
Okay. So all I did was write the 2 equations down from step 1 and step 2. All right, do you want to eliminate S or T? It doesn't matter. You could do S or T. I think maybe we know our 11s better than our 17s as far as multiplication facts are concerned. If this is a 22, negative 22, what do I need to do with this 11? Good. Multiply it by what? 2. Okay, so we're going to multiply the top row by 2, and it doesn't need to be a negative 2. And remember, we're writing it out beside. We didn't change the bottom row, so we're just going to.
Oh, that just made things a whole lot easier.
I told you it was gonna end up equaling no solution.
Is that the only other possibility?
Actually, yeah, I think.
Okay,
we've
so
done
we're
this
getting
with-
negative 34s and a positive 34s. So what happens there?
0 equals 0.
They cancel. What about a 22t and a negative 22t?
They cancel.
They cancel. This gives me 0. No variables left on this side. What is negative 82 and 82? 0. Look back. What is 0 equals 0? What kind of a solution is that? Infinitely many. Not no solution.
That's what I
But there's
meant
no
when I
variable,
said-
therefore it can't equal anything.
Right. Infinitely many solutions. So, whoa. So you're going to write, listen, you don't need to do any more work. Once you get 0 equals 0, you can stop and say infinitely many. What you cannot do, though, is guess that it's infinitely many and have no work to prove it. You have to get to this part here to tell me that it's infinitely many. If you do not have work to show me that it's 0 equals 0, you do not get credit for the problem. If you just looked at your neighbor's paper and saw that they put no solution and you put no solution and you have no work, you get no credit. You have to take it down to here to show me that you know that it's infinitely many solutions, okay? But now, once you get 0, there's nothing more to do. We don't have to do steps 4 and 5. We're done.
Can we be
Okay.
done today? My brain-
We can be done for break time, yes. Go ahead and take a break till 2:20.